So I think I mentioned in my last video that sometimes when I finish a really long book, I like to pick a really short book that I can read over the course of a couple days, just to, kind of keep my momentum going. And that ended up being this book. This is We Trade Our Night for Someone Else's Day by Ivana Bodrožić, translated from the Croatian by Ellen Elias Bursac. And this is sort of a crime novel, which is not a genre that I read very often. It's not something I seek out, but I saw this on the shelf at a used bookstore in my area, and I recognized the publisher. This is from Seven Stories Press, and I knew that they're, a pretty well respected publisher of more like literary or like highbrow fiction in translation. So I figured this must be pretty good if it's in their catalog. And the title is very good. Interestingly, though, that is not the title in Croatian. The title in Croatian is Rupa, which means hole or pit. Uh, the English title comes from a song by a band from Yugoslavia whose lyrics are quoted throughout the book. But it is a really cool title, I think. So the premise here is that it takes place in the city of Vukovar, which uh, this is a city in Croatia, but during the wars in the 1990s, it was invaded and taken over by Serbian nationalist paramilitaries with the support of the remnants of the army of Yugoslavia because Serbia was kind of in control of the Yugoslav army and like the other countries of Yugoslavia were trying to secede, including Croatia. So during that time, that Vukovar was controlled by these Serbian nationalists, um, which before the war there was like a sizable Serbian minority in the region, as I understand it, which is why the Serbian nationalists invaded. So then they took it over for like several years, I think. Um, it ended up going back to Croatia after the war, and it's part of Croatia to this day. Um, but like a lot of Croatians were killed. There was ethnic cleansing that happened. A lot of Croatians fled, and so for a while it was like a Serbian city. And then after the war, um, a lot of Croatians came back, Croatians who had fled. So nowadays, there's still a sizable minority of Serbs in the city, but it is majority Croatian. But they have this kind of interesting system where there's like separate school systems. So if you're Serbian, you send your kids to the Serbian school, they follow the curriculum that's used in Serbia, and they're taught in Serbian. They might learn Croatian as a foreign language, which I mean they're mutually intelligible anyway, but there are some slight differences. Um, but then if you're Croatian and you live in Vukovar, your kids go to the Croatian schools, they're taught in Croatian. Uh, so it's an interesting system, but basically the premise of this book is that this woman who was um, Croatian, although it's revealed, if I read this correctly, it's revealed that actually her father was Serbian and her mother was Croatian, but her father's like not in her life. So people think of her as Croatian. She's a Croatian woman teaching at one of the Serbian schools in this city. Um, so there's like a whole ethnic tension to this whole story. But what happened was she slept with one of her students, not good. And he was Serbian. So what she did was wrong, but then there's this like ethnic hatred that's layered over top of it because she was Croatian and the victim was Serbian. But then it's alleged that she convinced um this teenage boy to kill her husband. Um, so our main character is a crime reporter who is sent to Vukovar to um to write an article about this case. And she's actually from the city originally. Her family left during the wars in the 1990s. She lived in Split for a while, and then she lived in Zagreb for a while, and she's living in Zagreb at the time of the book taking place, but she got sent back to her old hometown to cover this story. And so the first half of the novel is sort of focused around that case, and the chapters alternate. There will be a chapter that takes place in early 2010 and kind of about the background of this case, and then there will be chapters that take place in the fall of 2010, which is present day for the novel. And we're sort of switching back and forth, but mostly focused around this case of the teacher and the student. Um, and then the second half of the book is not even really about that case anymore. It's about all of this like corruption and almost organized crime that's going on around the political figures in the city, because this journalist kind of stumbles into all of that, um, as she's trying to investigate the case about the teacher. So the second half of the novel, not even about the teacher anymore. It's about all of these political murders that are going on. So that was an interesting structure. And something I found really interesting, though, is that a lot of the characters, not necessarily the main character, the journalist, but most of the other characters have like almost a mirror version of themselves. Like all of our secondary characters come in pairs, where like one of them is Serbian and one of them is Croatian, and they have like either like similar background and similar experiences, or they serve a similar role in the narrative, but one of them is on one side of the ethnic tension and the other one's on the other side. So that kind of mirroring is really interesting, and kind of showing how like these people are very similar. They just by an accident of birth ended up on opposite sides of this conflict. Um, and then what else was I gonna say about this? So yeah, I think that was the main thing. It was pretty short. It's a 220 page book. I read it in like 3 days. Um, yeah. I looked up the band that the lyrics are taken from. Let me make sure I get the name of this band right. It's in the translator's note. Um, oh yeah, yeah. So the band is called Ekaterina Velika, also known as EKV, and they're like an alternative rock band from Yugoslavia at the time. I think they were from what is now Serbia, uh, and they were kind of like an alternative rock band in the 80s and 90s. I looked them up; they're pretty good. And then there's a list in the back of the book here of all the songs whose lyrics are either used as chapter titles or quoted somewhere in the book. And I haven't listened to all of these, but I listened to like a couple of their albums. So that was cool. Yeah, interesting coincidence. So that this translator, Ellen Elias Bursac, she's probably the leading translator of Serbian and Croatian and Bosnian into English, or one of the leading translators at least. I'm actually trying to learn Croatian right now. I got engaged recently. My fiance and I are probably going to go to some of the Croatian islands in the Adriatic Sea for our honeymoon after we get married in about 2 years. Um, and we were talking about Greece for a while, but then I was like, I like learning languages, so I'm like, I want to go on a honeymoon to a place where they speak a language that I want to learn. Um, and like, no offense to Greece, but I don't know, the Greek language is just kind of intimidating to me. I speak Russian, so I figured it would be easy to learn another Slavic language. And these Croatian islands are beautiful, so I'm like, let's plan on going there, and I'll spend the next 2 years trying to learn Croatian. All of this is to say, the textbook I've been using, one of the two authors is this translator. And then another crazy coincidence, a book club that I'm in is about to read Trieste by Dasha Derndich, also translated by this same translator. So I thought that was a fun coincidence. I'm going to start that later today, probably, or maybe tomorrow. Uh, but yeah, I did like this. The author has a few other works that are available in English. I'm not like seeking those out immediately, but I'm keeping this author on my radar. Um, yeah, I thought this was good. It was, you know, as somebody who didn't know a whole lot about Um, this conflict in former Yugoslavia in the 1990s, this was really eye-opening to see like what life was like in the aftermath of that conflict, or like, like 15 years after it. This is, the book takes place in 2010. I know there was fighting between Serbia and Kosovo up until 1999, but I think things cooled down in Croatia by like the mid 90s, I want to say, like 95 or 96. Uh, but yeah, yeah, really, really good book. Again, I don't read a lot of like crime fiction, and I don't think this author mainly writes crime fiction, but it is appropriate to call this a crime novel. It is, again, mostly about all of the organized crime in Vukovar. Um, yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, I don't know when I'll be back on YouTube because the next few things I plan on reading are not super long, but in like the 300 to 400 page range. So I might not be back here for a few weeks, but yeah, this was a fun little short read. I shouldn't say fun. It was very dark and disturbing at times, but a very well crafted book that I am glad to have read.